Good morning, everyone. I am Erin Turbot, the Public Information Officer with the Wyoming Department of Workforce Services, and I'm thrilled to welcome you today to this virtual training series, Collaboration in Action, a smarter approach to industry growth. This series was created based on your feedback, and we're excited to bring you topics that matter most to you. Be sure to check out our website at dws.wyo.gov/VTS. Jennifer is dropping that into the chat right now. You can look for more virtual training series right there. Today's session is being recorded and all materials will be available on our site within a few days. If you have questions during the presentation, just pop them into chat and we will answer them at the end of the hour. Now, before I introduce our panel, moderator today, please throw your answers in the chat. We are very curious. Can you please indicate your role? For example, are you an employer or an employee, or do you represent an educational institution or an industry? Also, if you could snap your fingers and remove one major barrier to success for your industry in Wyoming, what would it be? I'm going to let you go ahead and answer that. And I am sure that the panel will be talking about many of these barriers throughout the presentation today. We're going to go ahead and introduce our panel moderator for today. And I am going to advance the slide. We're going to introduce Jennifer Wilch, the Executive Director for the Wyoming Workforce Development Council. And our panelists include Dana Miller, Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Coordinator for the Office of Economic Transformation for the Gillette College Foundation, Larry Fodor, Vice President and COO at Mechanical Systems, Inc., and member of the Wyoming Young Contractors Association, Mary Orr, manager of the Laramie and Rollins Workforce Centers of the Wyoming Department of Workforce Services, and the convener of Southwest Wyoming Manufacturing Partnership. Ron Wild with the Southwest Wyoming Manufacturing Partnership. Ron, turn on your camera. And Tanya Hacker, who is the Dean of Outreach and Workforce Development at the Laramie County Community College. Jennifer, we are so excited to hear more from you and the panel today. Please start us off by providing a brief overview of what the panel will be discussing today. Everyone, please help me welcome Jennifer.
Thank you, Erin. So today we're going to break this topic down into 3 sections. First, we're going to understand the landscape by looking at some current partnerships and their challenges. Second, we'll look at some examples. So we'll have partnership in action, some solutions, strategies, and sustainability examples. And lastly, we'll talk about how to engage others and what to do moving forward. But first, let's talk a little bit about the basis for the conversation today. And that's our next gen sector partnerships. This is a model that we use in the state of Wyoming and has been supported by the Workforce Development Council. This partnership strategy is for sector partnerships. And to really get a quick overview of this, I'd like to look at a short 4-minute video that really explains what next gen sector partnerships are.
Jobs, they're moving pretty fast these days. Most of us know what it's like to feel obsolete in the modern job market, or to move away from home to find a good job. At the same time, lots of local employers struggle to find the right talent to make their businesses grow and thrive. It's an unfortunate misalignment, and it's a really big deal. Because if businesses aren't
Aaron, you can't mute or we can't hear.
So what's going wrong here? What explains the disconnect between what businesses need and what schools are teaching? Aren't there a bunch of programs already working with businesses to meet their needs? Absolutely. In fact, lots of groups are trying to solve this problem, except they're doing it on their own. Education, workforce development, and economic development organizations are all talking to businesses. They're running focus groups and holding advisory meetings. What happens is that some employers are over solicited, asked to participate in lots of different meetings and boards, while others are ignored entirely. Business leaders get burned out, industry involvement is low, and survey samples are skewed. To make matters worse, conversations with business are often organized around narrow topics like, what are your entry-level training needs? The result is that we often miss out on the bigger opportunities and needs that are shaping the industry for tomorrow, which just so happen to be the topics that business leaders are most interested in talking about. So what if we were able to flip things around a little bit? What if instead of the public sector pushing their programs and services on businesses, what if we could mobilize a whole industry to team up and engage with public partners to pull what they need from us, building the talent and skills of our local workforce while growing businesses and strengthening the sector? It's called a next generation sector partnership, and it can transform your region's economy. Next gen sector partnerships are different than traditional sector partnerships in three key ways. One, industry is at the center. Instead of organizing conversations with businesses around programs or grants, business leaders define and champion their own agenda and stay invested as a result. Industry at the center means that literally only businesses are given a seat at the center table. Public partners sit around the outside of the room in listen-only mode. Does that mean they're passive? Not at all. It means they give the floor to industry to design their own agenda, and they're poised for collective action as a result. It also means that businesses personally champion priorities. This is important. Next-gen partnerships don't advance initiatives unless there are business champions committed to them. Two, they tackle more than just workforce needs. In any growing industry, workforce is likely to be a top priority. But other things matter too, like infrastructure needs, supply chain issues, or access to capital. Next-gen sector partnerships tackle all of the above. Anything business leaders agree is important is a priority of a next-gen partnership. Three, community support. Next-gen sector partnerships are a team effort. Education, workforce, and economic development partners work together to respond to industry needs. It's not about a special initiative or new program. It's a way of working better together. Next-gen sector partnerships work. Across the country, they're having a real impact. Metropolitan and rural areas have made timely changes to education programs at the right scale for the labor market. People are getting good jobs and keeping them. Meanwhile, businesses can hire the talent they need to grow. And they're generating new ideas, new markets, and new product lines because they're better connected with their peers. This boils down to stronger businesses and more people with better jobs. And that's what matters most in making our communities thrive. Is your region ready for something different? Visit nextgensectorpartnerships.com.
All right. Well, that again is just a very brief video about what Next Gen Sector Partnerships are. But here with us today are a group of industry leaders and champions and conveners from around the state representing different industries throughout our state. So right now, I'd like to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves and briefly talk about their Next Gen Sector Partnership. Ron Wild, can we start with you?
Certainly. So, my name is Ron Wild. I reside in the Rock Springs Green River area. I'm one of the founding business champions for the Southwestern Wyoming Manufacturing Partnership. And we have partnered with education, both at the K-12 as well as the community college level, to meet the needs of businesses in the area.
Thank you, Ron. And you're with the Southwest Manufacturing Partnership. Larry Fodor, could you go next, please?
Thank you, Jennifer. My name is Larry Fodor. I'm with Mechanical Systems based out of Cheyenne, Wyoming. I'm also the board chair for the Wyoming Construction Coalition, and I've been the industry champion for the construction sector partnership in Southeast Wyoming since 2018, and now since our relaunch in 2025.
Thank you, Larry. Mary Orr, could you go next?
Sure. Hey, everybody. I'm Mary Orr. I'm the center manager of the Laramie and Rawlins Workforce Centers with the Department of Workforce Services, and currently help co-convene and am also a support partner of the High Altitude Manufacturing Partnership here in Laramie.
Thank you, Mary. Our next two panelists represent multiple partnerships. Tanya Hacker, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Tanya Hacker. I am the Dean of Outreach and Workforce Development at Laramie County Community College. We serve Albany and Laramie counties in Southeast Wyoming, and I am part of 3 different partnerships. So I am a supporting partner for the High Altitude Manufacturing Partnership, a supporting partner for the construction partnership that Larry mentioned, and I am a co-convener and supporting partnership for the Southeast Wyoming Healthcare Partnership.
And last but not least, we have Dana Miller.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I am Dana Miller. I am with the Office of Economic Transformation in Gillette, and our initiative is really to look at workforce development, and found that the Next Gen sector partnership was really a great thing for us to look at. We had a launch several years ago for the construction industry, and believe it or not, they have taken themselves on and become very successful working with the college and the high schools, providing funds for the high school teachers, things like that. So real success story there in construction in our community. And then I've recently started 2 new ones. One is for the tourism, hospitality, and experience industry. And I'll talk a little bit later about some quick wins that we've had there. And then we are about to launch one for the nonprofit industry as well. So a lot happening there with funding and big changes there that affect lots of nonprofits.
Thank you, Dana. So now that we have the backdrop of what Next Gen sector partnerships are and a brief introduction of our panelists, let's jump into some questions. So first, we're going to understand the landscape. And with this, I'd like to ask Larry Fodor, what are some of the biggest challenges facing your industry in Wyoming today? And how can partnerships help address these challenges?
Thank you, Jennifer. I think the largest challenge I believe that the construction sector has been facing all across the nation, but Southeast Wyoming in particular, is just the stigma around the construction industry, and the old perception that construction and trades are dark, dirty, and dangerous, which is just not the case anymore. I think that's the number one thing we battle, whether it's with school administrators, counselors, teachers, parents of the students. So that was a tough one to overcome. I also believe we were facing closed lines of communication, whether that be with our interactions with the community colleges, with the school professionals, and those types of things. And getting past the industry's concern of losing their competitive edge by working as a group and working as a unit to solve problems that we all deal with. That one was probably the easiest for us to overcome. After the first Next Gen meeting, I think our industry, when we came together for the 2018 launch we had for the construction sector, everyone saw pretty quickly that even though we are competitors, even though we are all bidding the same projects and hoping to hire the same employees, that we are all facing the same issues, and that we're not asking for trade secrets. We're asking for a unified vision and a unified voice so that we could put together viable solutions. I know our partnership in particular, the lines of communication were significantly opened just after our launch of our construction sector program here in Laramie County. The school district administrators were in the audience, sitting as support around the room, listening to industry. Maybe weren't a big fan of some things they heard in that construction sector launch because it was outside of what they would typically be talking about in their circles. So the conversation started very quickly after that initial launch of our construction sector. From that, many great ideas that we had never considered working in our little isolation as a construction sector, such as an illuminated path for a way for the school district to be able to connect students to employers, to be able to connect counselors with employers, and just a way to kind of streamline the whole communication process between prospective employees and our industry. So we did that through a single email address that all of the school counselors, all of the teachers, all of the administrators have. So if there's ever an interest in the construction industry, they have one point of contact rather than sending students knocking on doors as they walk down the road. So that was a pretty big eye opener for us.
Thank you, Larry. I'm hearing a lot about opening lines of communication and making sure that it really is a unified vision for that industry. Now I'd like to ask Mary Orr and then have Dana Miller chime in on this as well. But what creative approaches have you taken to address the challenges of finding and hiring qualified workers?
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. So that's really the big question, right? How do employers get people, that are qualified or, to come work for them? Some things that the High Altitude Manufacturing Partnership have done. We hosted a job fair. This has been a while ago, but we hosted a big job fair that was the partnerships hosted, and so manufacturers were the highlight, and then other employers were welcome as well, to kind of bring people in. Another thing that we've done, actually took a page out of Larry's book, is work with the school district to have counselors and teachers of Albany County School District tour different manufacturers in Laramie. Similar to what Larry said, there's a stigma around some of these industries. People view manufacturing as like you stand on an assembly line or something, but Laramie is a hub for manufacturing, and so there's all kinds of manufacturers here, and so we took them around and they toured. And really, the idea there is kind of playing the long game of trying to reach the youth, get them excited about these different careers so that when they're ready to start, getting into actual jobs, they have this idea in their head, that maybe this is something that they're interested in. LCCC started the Advanced Manufacturing and Materials Center over in Cheyenne, and that was something that was in the works, but through the partnership really helped them kind of figure out what was needed and what employers actually needed, the type of training. And so there's that now where people can go and, get their certifications and degrees in manufacturing and be ready to work. So really it's really just using that partnership to bring together those support partners and listening to those employers and kind of coming up with those ideas. There's also internships is another big one that some employers are starting to utilize more, where you can bring people on that maybe don't have the skills and they can start seeing what it's like learning day to day and slowly gaining those skills.
Thank you, Mary. Dana, can you add an example from one of your partnerships?
Yes, so our tourism, one of the very first meeting from our launch described how do we get tourists to stay one more day or to even stop along the road. You don't think of Gillette as being a tourist destination, We really try to bank on people stopping when they're on their way from the Black Hills to Yellowstone. And so there was a lot of talk about who is the frontline person talking to the tourist and knowing what you can do to get them to stay another day. And so with the help of the University of Wyoming through the WORTH initiative, the Wyoming Outdoor Recreation and Tourism and Hospitality, they were able to bring training. And so we trained front line workers, over 40 of them in our first session. And it was really about showing them their role in the economy and how important they are. They're not just a server, they're not just a hotel front desk clerk, but they're an ambassador to our community, and really not only showing good customer service, but it was really about knowing what's going on in our community and what a great community it is and portraying that. So that training was a great way for employees to understand their role in the industry and hopefully stay in the industry longer.
That's great. I really love that project, Dana. Now, Tanya Hacker, you have a very broad perspective, especially working with 3 different partnerships and being in the education sector. So what are some future trends in the workforce that individuals can do to better position themselves for these emerging job opportunities and industries in the state?
Great. Yep. Thanks, Jennifer. I think one of the biggies is the integration of advanced technologies, and this is across industries. So when we talk about AI, we're talking about automation, digital design. Telehealth is big in healthcare, AI-driven diagnostics in healthcare. At the college here, we have an advanced additive manufacturing and fabrication lab. It's just a very high-tech makerspace. And so one of the pieces of technology that we're looking at purchasing and integrating into the space is actually a 3D printer that is specifically designed to print synthetic body parts like organs and limbs and different things. And those can be integrated into our healthcare programs for different training opportunities. But the important piece is that our students coming through know how to use that technology, know how they can leverage some of that technology so that they can create things on site when necessary. So this is the way, this is kind of the trend that we're seeing. And in Wyoming, I think it's especially important because when businesses want to increase capacity, scale up, improve efficiencies, things like that, they can't always rely on a ready workforce. We're working really hard together to get there, to get more of a workforce, get our youth to stay in Wyoming, all kinds of things we're working to try to do. But we just don't have a lot of people here in this state, which is wonderful and also difficult, sometimes can create challenges. And so that's why staying sort of on the leading edge of the integration of advanced technologies is so important, both for people looking to enter the workforce and then also for small businesses and industries. So here at LCCC, we help to train both. We help develop the talent pipeline for workers wanting to enter the workforce in various industries. And then we also help industries with continuing education to learn about new technologies, to learn how to integrate those new technologies and things like that. So that is one big theme that I would say is pretty big right now. Another theme is that we are seeing a resurgence in registered apprenticeships, which I think is really important. So not only for the trades, which is what we've kind of been used to historically, but also in fields like IT, healthcare, energy, etc. So this shift is really happening. One example of that, and I know this isn't one of the sector partnerships we have, but here in Laramie County, we started up an apprenticeship program for teachers because there's a teacher shortage. It's very difficult to get teachers. And so a new sort of earn while you learn apprenticeship approach. It's a grow your own approach. So identifying people who already work within the school district who are interested in becoming a teacher in hard to fill positions. So that's just one example of how that is growing. And I think that's something that we need to encourage people looking for jobs to look into is apprenticeship opportunities. So the second part of your question, Jennifer, to help folks prepare for these emerging opportunities, I would say, just not being afraid of technology. That's a big one. So really embracing it, embracing the opportunity to learn more about it. They should seek the stackable credentials that are industry relevant, and we learn from these partnerships what those are. That's why it's so important that industry drive these conversations, is because they determine what's relevant for them, what they want to see an applicant coming in with, and then we as a supporting partner can help these people within the workforce pool to earn those credentials so that they're ready to hit the ground running when they get there. I think also, like I mentioned before, exploring various work-based learning opportunities, not just apprenticeships, but also internships, job shadows, encouraging, and Larry might talk about it later, but people within our school districts who are working with our youth to learn more about the industries. And so whether that's a tour, whether that's inviting people to come in the schools and talk about them, I think all of that is really important. So I would say those would be my biggest recommendations.
Thank you, Tanya. And I really love how both Laramie County Community College, but all of our colleges throughout the state are really nimble in trying to meet those industry needs. And so I think that's really important for industry partnerships to have that education piece, because you guys really are good about pivoting and making sure the industry gets what they need. So now let's talk about some of these partnerships and actions, some solution strategies, and some secret sauce to their sustainability. And with that, I'm going to call on Ron Wild to discuss what are some sustainable practices that Wyoming businesses can adopt to remain competitive, and how can partnerships support those implementations?
So I'm going to drift back to the start of the Southwest Wyoming Manufacturing Partnership, or SWMP. So whenever we first started, we took the supervisors, the lead foreman for the mine sites, and we brought them together, and we asked them to identify what it was that was going to allow them to have employees starting out that would be better qualified, more desirable. And working with West Wyoming Community College, they then took those ideas and put together the first operator certification program. So what's the secret sauce? The secret sauce is being open to conversation and bringing in the right people to identify exactly what the needs are, and then working with your education partners to bring them about. We were looking at doing a power line program, and then COVID happened, so it got derailed for a little bit. But after COVID, using WIP funding, we were able to start the power line program, and the Western is now turning out apprentices for journeyman linemen across the state. And we started in both programs with one class, and now both programs are actually pushing out 2 classes a semester. So that's really where the underlying secret sauce is having businesses identify what is required, and then finding education partners that are willing to move it forward.
Agreed, Ron. In fact, I think everyone will see throughout our conversation today that those relationships are really important, and having those open lines of communication, but really making sure the industry has the main voice at the table. So going back to Tanya, and then I'll have Mary Orr give some examples as well, but what strategies can be implemented to address workforce shortages and skill gaps, and how can partnerships help provide effective solutions?
Great question, Jennifer. Thank you. I think the biggest shift I've seen, and the reason why I love these next gen sector partnerships so much, this model is really effective, is because number one, they're action oriented. So it's definitely not just a meeting to have a meeting, you know, a meeting about another meeting, or it's really truly there are action items that are created, there are action teams that are developed. I mean, you've heard other people here talk about some of the outcomes of these partnerships. They're real outcomes that are positively impacting our workforce development and our ability to train people the right way and get people into good jobs. So so that is a big piece of it. The action oriented piece is really important. And then the second one, I'll just echo what Jennifer just said and others have said, is just that they're industry driven, right? So that's a big piece, is I think sometimes in our public partners and agency partners and even folks in education, you know, whether it's K-12 or post-secondary, sometimes think they know, you know, what the industry trends are and things. But what I've learned is that we don't always know, and we really need to listen to our industry partners and let them drive that conversation. And then then be responsive to those. So just the model and the way the model is implemented in the state of Wyoming, I think, is really helping. And really the key is to keep that going, keep that work going. The partnerships are there. We're so lucky in Wyoming that we all kind of know each other, right? So we have these close partnerships. We run into each other in the grocery stores and those kinds of things. And I think making sure that we're consistently staying engaged and continuing to have these conversations. And as challenges come up, not shying away from those challenges, but really being bold and being brave enough to figure out a way to address these challenges together. I mean, Larry talked about earlier, just, you know, the fact that construction companies are often competing against each other for different bids and things like that could be perceived as a challenge, right? Like how do we even get everybody to the table? And so really it's just about kind of showing up and doing the good work and doing it for the industry and for the sector, not just for your company, but really setting that aside and making it about a collective effort for your community, for Wyoming, to grow the workforce. So I think those are all kind of philosophical thoughts, but they're things that I'm seeing in practice and are really truly making a difference. So I really appreciate that very much. So the outcomes of that really are that we can create, again, really good solutions like customized non-credit short-term training programs that are specifically aligned with industry needs, career pathways and academies within our schools to help our youth prepare for opportunities in the workforce, embedding industry credentials within those pathways so that our youth graduate from high school with credentials that help them be ready to enter the workforce. And so that whether or not they decide to go on for post-secondary education or to go right into the workforce, they have something that is going to be valuable and relevant for them. So one quick example that we're kind of working on here at LCCC related to manufacturing is to stand up the integration of AI agents and advanced manufacturing, to stand up training related to that for industry and for people coming through our manufacturing program. So without industry partners telling us this is what we need, we may not have thought to offer that training. So that's just a really timely kind of something we're working on right now example. So yeah, that's what I have to share. Thank you.
And Mary, I know you have some great examples of some strategies to address workforce shortages and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you know, what Tanya said, yeah, was amazing. I think, you know, first and foremost, just getting a seat at the table if you're a business owner, either joining a partnership that aligns with your industry or starting to work in your area of creating a partnership for your industry. All of this really is kind of long game stuff, you know, like if you're going to work with your community college partners to try and get a program set up, to get training going, to either get new employees or better training for your current employees, that takes time, right? But there's also some things that you can do in the meantime, as an employer, which would be, for example, to plug Department of Workforce Services, we have the Workforce Development Training Fund that has all kinds of dollars available to assist with registered apprenticeship programs, internship grants, business training grants, things to kind of make it easier for you to either hire that person that maybe doesn't have the skills and help them get the skills, or help pay for training for employees you already have that need some upskilling. Really just working at all angles, working with others in your industry to kind of solve some of those more, those things that are going to take longer. To make happen, and just getting yourself out in the community as much as you can. I don't know, Jennifer, if you're going to talk about the videos, Forge Your Future, but doing things to just get your business out there and get, name recognition goes a long way as well.
Thank you, Mary. And then something that we really do talk about in our next gen academies and our one-on-one or 101 trainings is that having the civic entrepreneurs, the business owners, or C-suite people who really care about their community, because the problems that the partnerships solve are bigger than one business can solve. They're industry-wide. These take that collaboration. And so with this, let's go back to Larry Fodor about some successful examples of how your partnerships have benefited in your industry in Wyoming, and what lessons can we learn from these examples?
Thank you, Jennifer. I'd mentioned earlier that the illuminated path was kind of a game changer and something we hadn't considered in the past. That came from close collaboration with the school district after the launch of our next gen. Some of the other things that maybe we didn't realize is, as an industry, we were not communicating the same language with the youth of today. And, we would talk about, this is your wage, this, you get a benefits package, you get medical insurance. And the school district helped us to understand that they want to know the value of that. It means nothing to most 18-year-olds that you get free medical insurance until you point out the fact that that's worth $7.50 an hour, on top of their base wage, and just helping our industry kind of change the way we approached today's youth has been a big help. Mary Orr mentioned earlier the bus tours. I think that was a significant turning point for our sector partnership here in Laramie County. I think initially we had a lot of skepticism still from the district and the administrators until we put the superintendent, all the school counselors, and all the school principals and vice principals on a bus and toured them to 10 different construction companies within Laramie County, all different scopes of work, all different kinds of companies, but had those companies explain to them their safety programs, their training programs, their benefits packages, all the things. And I think that was a big, significant turnaround in the level of trust they had with our industry, that we're trying to provide long-lasting careers for Wyoming residents and not just jobs that's going to just turn kids out. So I think that the open line of contact is huge. It's not uncommon for folks involved with our partnership to get a call a week from somebody at the school district, whether it's a teacher or a counselor or somebody saying, hey, wood shop, we're in the middle of a project, we ran out of wood, and we don't have funds and we can't get it replaced quick enough. And 30 minutes later, there's a lumber truck backing up with donated wood. We're able to respond a lot quicker, and I think the district has been very surprised at how willing we are to step in and help any way we can to keep advancing these students' education. And I think just the industry partners truly coming together. You mentioned secret sauce earlier, Jennifer, of how to keep these partnerships moving and how to get buy-in. I think early wins in your next gen sector partnership are important, not only for the industry partners, but for the folks sitting around the center of the room. There's always a little bit of skepticism when you say, hey, let's have a meeting and talk about problems. But when you have potential solutions coming out of those meetings, and then they see those solutions starting to take action and improve the situation. I think that's very important. So, as far as our partnership, I think the biggest benefits we have had is opening up the lines of communication. Our partnership with Laramie County Community College, our partnership with Laramie County School District #1. We've got legislators that are coming to meetings, asking questions, and our superintendent of schools is 100% on board now. To the point where his own son wasn't as satisfied with college as he thought he might be and wanted to enter the trades. And so that's a phone call we got from the superintendent saying, "Hey, can you help guide my son into a career?" And those are pretty significant for our industry, and we're going to continue to build on that. We launched in 2018. As Ron mentioned, COVID hit and was a speed bump for quite a few things. We kept doing the work in the background, but weren't holding regular meetings. So we just relaunched in April of 25. 7 years later, there's a significant difference in the priorities and the issues facing our industry. So we're excited to hit the ground running and solve a whole new batch of problems while still continuing on the programs we developed in the original phase.
And then Larry, if I remember right, you and the Wyoming Young Contractors Coalition documented the model that you used for having those relationships and with the school district and you share that around the state, which I think is wonderful, and another example of how partnerships might be local and regional, but that their promising practices are shared throughout the state, so we're not all reinventing the wheel.
Correct.
Now, Ron, I know you have a few examples of how partnerships have benefited your industry and some lessons that the Southwest Manufacturing Partnership has learned as well.
Yes, ma'am. There are some things that we've learned. One of the first things we learned is that without a business champion to drive the initiative, it will sit over in the corner and die a painful, forgotten death as it cries pitifully into the darkness. Whenever we first started, we had three initiatives that we were going to undertake: education, marketing, and infrastructure, but there was really no one to take any ownership for infrastructure. So it ended up getting forgotten about, so to speak, and we moved on. So whenever you set out to go down the path, the thing to remember is that not every initiative is going to bear fruit. It's not every initiative is going to move forward. We've tried working with the medical and hospitality industries here in the Southwest Wyoming. We haven't gotten any ownership of them, so they haven't really launched and moved forward at all. But whenever it comes to meeting the needs of the industries in the region, we've been able to do that primarily through the two programs I talked about earlier. But the RIDE initiative with the Wyoming Department of Education and the Portrait of the Graduate have brought about a change in how K-12 is addressing some of the internships and apprenticeships. So we've been working with Sweetwater School Districts 1 and 2, and Green River has done a very good job with their internship initiative and had students all over the communities this last year. And then we've been going into Sweetwater 1 and having a mentorship program with the students on a monthly basis to try and get them to understand that they're going to be graduating in a year or two, and that's not the end of their pathway. It's only the beginning. And by being able to give that to them while they're still in school and help address pathways into the workplace, some of them are going into the military. Some of them have plans to go to a different community college and pursue dental hygienists. Others want to be welders. But what we're doing is we're meeting them at where they are and trying to give them a path forward.
That's great, Ron. So let's move into our last section about what people can do next. So, Dana and Larry, what advice would you give industry leaders who are hesitant to join and take an active role in these partnerships?
Want me to go first?
Yes.
Okay. Um, so I think we talked about this a couple of times about being competitors. Every industry pretty much has a national association or maybe even a state association. And the idea is bringing like companies together. And this is happening on a local level. So bringing that idea of working together is what is going to move the needle. And a lot of people are heads down, um, working hard and not working with their local partners, not realizing that when you come to a meeting or when you get in the same room with some of the people in your industry, how you can benefit each other. And so the power is in the numbers, and thinking it won't happen unless you're in the room together. And that's kind of the secret sauce, like we said earlier, but really the magic. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to evolve and who the partners might be. And a lot of the hesitation too is really, I'm so busy, I can't take time away from work or away from my business. But this is time well spent that is going to help scale your business. And we want to focus from a workforce development standpoint. Our current businesses are what we want to invest in. And we know they have the ability to scale and add more jobs and better jobs to keep our youth here in the state. And so this program really does that, brings people together at a local level for the benefit of growing our individual businesses. And I think you don't know what you don't know. And so showing up is, and being at the table is the biggest benefit.
Jennifer, I think one of the biggest benefits I see is just strength in numbers. When you have a unified voice coming from a particular sector, I think that carries a lot more weight and maybe some motivation to get involved, whether you're a two-man shop or a 200-man shop. When you sit around the table, you have the same voice, no matter the size of your company. So I think it really gives you an opportunity to have some input. I think it gives you the opportunity to have some influence for your business, regardless of the size, as long as you're willing to make the contributions to the group. It was pretty eye-opening for me, speaking of strength in numbers, when we did our relaunch. We had the superintendent of schools attend that relaunch as well. And one of his biggest takeaways was that he was very excited to re-engage, very excited to dig back in after he saw the excitement and the quantity of the construction sector partners that were sitting around the table. So I think we get a lot more traction with a lot more members, with a lot more participation, and it means a lot more to the community when they see a unified voice coming out of these meetings.
I agree, Larry. And when I see all the partnerships together at our Next Gen Academy, I mean, you can't have a room full of more doers than at that academy. The energy is high, and then that group is just always ready to tackle the next opportunities that we face in our state. So to round out the questions today, I ask everyone to just give one piece of advice to someone who's looking at getting involved in a sector partnership or even maybe starting a partnership. So what's one piece of advice that you have? Larry, let's start with you.
I think my biggest advice would just do it. Get started, right? Like take the first step, hold your launch meeting. You can gauge the interest from your sector based on the success of your launch meeting, but it also takes everyone to reach out to whoever they know that could be interested or has something to gain by coming to those meetings, and just get your core group developed and develop your list of goals early, and hopefully score some early wins.
How about you, Dana?
I would say, especially if you're an industry leader, find a co-champion. Find someone that you relate well with and that you can come together as a team and be the leader for your industry. This isn't something to do on your own, that, again, what Larry said, power in numbers. But I think having kind of that first conversation and really being on board what the power of this is, that gives you motivation as well to take the next step.
And Mary?
I would say attend a Next Gen 101 event, which I think there's one coming up, so that's perfect timing. If you start out learning like really what it's all about, I think it helps you kind of frame that both for employers and any support partners. If you start out the partnership really holding to the Next Gen model, and you really give it a chance, it can feel a little weird at first, but if you really give it a chance and you really go all in, it works. It really just works.
Ron?
So I guess I cheated a little bit because I dropped something in chat for everyone too. But the best thing that I can tell you is don't quit. Get started, and you can transform lives. And you really won't understand just how many lives you're going to impact, because once you start that trend and you start that domino effect, it cascades, and then you'll end up running into somebody and find out that their future is dramatically different than it was going to be when they first encountered you.
And finally, Tanya.
Thank you. I love that quote that Ron dropped in there. He had mentioned that before, and I just love that. So, but I would say just have a mindset that is that has a willingness to act. It's back to that action-oriented piece. Just you're not going to get to sit back in these meetings and just listen and not take some action. Eventually, you will take action, and it's wonderful, and it feels like good work. It's a great way to be involved. So I would say just have that willingness to sort of take action and be involved.
I couldn't agree more with everything that the panelists have said. In fact, thank you, Mary, for bringing up my recommendation for your next best step is to join a Next Gen 101 training. We're going to host one on June 18th at 9 a.m. Aaron has posted the QR code there for registering for this virtual training. It lasts about an hour, so you'll be done in an hour. If you're unable to make this, please reach out to me and I can set up a training. We have the Wyoming Workforce Development Council sponsors this model in the state, and with that, they provide technical assistance, and we've contracted with Collaborative Economics. They're one of the co-founders of the Next Gen Sector Partnership model, and we can set up customized trainings for you as well. So to learn more, please join our Next Gen 101 and feel free to register. Mary also brought up that the Department of Workforce Services and the Wyoming Workforce Development Council has launched an initiative called Forge Your Future, and I'll turn it over to Aaron to talk a little bit more.
Okay, I will. I jumped the gun a little bit. I'm gonna replay my cool little slide here because it was really, really cool. So, finding skilled and motivated workers has never been more important. And here, click. Forge Your Future, spinny, spinny. Or more challenging for Wyoming employers. And that is where Forge Your Future campaign comes in. So created by the Wyoming Department of Workforce Services and the Wyoming Workforce Development Council, this statewide initiative helps connect job seekers with real opportunities, showcasing the rewarding careers available right here at home. Through a growing video library of personal success stories, Forge Your Future highlights Wyoming residents who have built fulfilling careers in industries like construction and trades, healthcare, hospitality and tourism, and manufacturing. These authentic local stories don't just inspire, they inform. They help job seekers picture a future in your industry and in your workplace. Now, why does this matter for employers? Forge Your Future is a tool to help grow your talent pipeline. Employers can use the campaign materials to promote their industries, open doors for new hires, and strengthen community ties. It's storytelling with purpose, and it's helping Wyoming build a workforce for the future. To explore this campaign, visit dws.wyo.gov/FYF, or to get involved, you can email Jennifer Wilch at jennifer.wilch@wyo.gov. And I am going to play a short 1-minute 46-second video, and it's not going to be big.
Wyoming is more than wide open spaces. It's a place of opportunity where people can build careers, chase their dreams, and thrive in their communities. The Forge Your Future campaign showcases the opportunities available for Wyomingites to begin or transform their careers in the Cowboy State's key industries: tourism, construction and trades, healthcare, and manufacturing.
Opportunities in Wyoming at this point in the construction industry is huge. There's construction happening everywhere, and there's no signs of it slowing down for at least the next decade.
Forge Your Future shares stories of how our residents are forging their futures right here in Wyoming.
It means a lot to me to be able to work here in Wyoming and to be trained here in Wyoming. It's a blessing.
I think there are great opportunities in Wyoming for workers in the trades in general.
Professionally crafted videos bring Wyoming's workforce opportunities to life through interviews with folks who've made career transitions, found educational opportunities, and are now thriving in high-paying roles across these industries. Wyomingites are driving our state's future. Through bold and inspiring branding, the Forge Your Future campaign captures Wyoming's grit, hardworking spirit, and the unearthed opportunities awaiting job seekers. Forge Your Future is more than a campaign. It's a call to action, and we're excited to set it free as a resource for those ready to take the next step in their careers. We'll make Wyoming the go-to place for raw opportunity, growth, and success. Let's forge the future together.
Aaron, I get goosebumps every time I watch that video, and I've watched it probably, I don't know, 50 times. I do want to point out, because we've been talking next gen, that the idea, the concept for Forge Your Future came from a next gen sector partnership.
Yes. That it's a pretty cool campaign, and I too get goosebumps every single time. This is something that you can spend a lot of time in this library, and I do hope that you do. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. If anyone has questions about Forge Your Future, about Next Gen Sector Partnerships, about any of the questions, or for any of the panelists, you can ask them now. We do have a quick survey for you. Very few questions. Jennifer Martinez will throw them in the chat right now for you. And then coming up next, in July, we have a fast-paced, informative session designed for veterans and employers. You will learn how the Jobs for Veterans state grant program supports veterans with job search tools, career counseling, and exclusive services, plus how employers can benefit from hiring incentives like We Hire Vets. We'll also highlight the Hilton Honors Military Program and celebrate standout staff making a difference. Don't miss this chance to connect with resources that turn service into career success. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to everybody who came and sat with us today. We appreciate everybody. Thank you so much. We will see you all next month. Thank you. Goodbye.